The remake of GoldenEye ended up being a welcome addition to the Bond series, as the reception was well received. This was a nice change of pace for Activision, as it fared much better than Quantum of Solace did. But Activision had more plans up their sleeves. They weren't going to only release the GoldenEye remake in 2010, oh no. They were going to blast consumers in the face with 2 releases on the exact same day on November 2nd, 2010, in North America. I already discussed what else was going on in the series in part 22, so check that out to help boost my watch time. Hear what I had to say there. Daniel Craig was between filming his second and third Bond film, and what would become Skyfall was in a production delay. That's basically the gist of 2010. So the plan was to go back to the idea of creating an original story for a Bond game, independent of any tie-ins with the films or books. This had been done multiple times before, most notably with the trilogy of Agent Under Fire, Nightfire, and Everything or Nothing from the Pierce Brosnan gaming era. But Activision wanted to see how well it would go by using Daniel Craig's voice and likeness. The result was a game entitled Bloodstone, announced during the summer of 2010 for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, Windows, and Nintendo DS. They hired a newcomer to the series to develop it, Bizarre Creations, a relatively smaller company known for the Geometry Wars and Project Gotham racing games. Returning for voice acting once again are Daniel Craig and Dame Judi Dench, and also Rory Kinnear, who plays M's chief of staff Bill Tanner in the films. And sort of keeping with the trend of adding female vocalists into the games like Maya in Everything or Nothing and Natasha Bedingfield in From Russia with Love, this game does the same thing with the addition of Joss Stone as both a character in the story and the theme song performer. Joss Stone for Bloodstone. And veteran Bond screenwriter Bruce Fierstein returns once again penning the story here. Now, I'm not saying Bloodstone killed Bizarre Creations entirely, but it looks like Bloodstone killed the company entirely. This was the last game they developed, and Activision could not find any future buyers for the studio, thus ending their 23-year run. So is that a bad omen for the quality of this game? Well, let's find out shortly, since this will be my first time ever playing it. In November of 2010, I had been married close to 4 months and living in a new city. I owned a Wii, but that was the only new system I had at the time. However, one of my favorite video game series of all time is Resident Evil. I was so excited for the release of Resident Evil 5 in 2009 that I bought a used Xbox 360 just to play that, with the intention of reselling the system after I beat it. I was a relatively poor 23-year-old at the time, so I couldn't justify spending all that money on 2 newer systems. So technically I did own that, but only for a brief period of time, and Bloodstone was not yet announced. I mentioned before that I honestly wasn't excited for the release of GoldenEye for the Wii, much at all, and when it was announced that Bloodstone was actually not going to be released on the Wii at all, I had even less excitement for it. I couldn't even play it unless I went and bought another Xbox 360 or PS3, and my computer wasn't strong enough to handle the Windows version. I think their thought process was to make GoldenEye the Wii release and Bloodstone the Xbox/PlayStation release, but they were both weirdly enough on the Nintendo DS, and they ended up releasing GoldenEye on the 360 and PS3 anyway 1 year later. So in the long run, both games ended up being on all systems, except the Wii never got Bloodstone. It was the Christmas of 2011 when I got Bloodstone for the DS as one of my gifts, but I never opened it. It has acted as a collection piece for me, but now it's time to check out this game for real. Let's check out the back of the box for the Xbox 360 version. A new Bond adventure. The UK's top secret biochemical project has fallen into enemy hands. Only one man can unravel the sinister goal and defeat those behind it. Bond. James Bond. A very standard Bondian plot there, and not too much to say about it really. It is a new Bond adventure. So let's check this out. We begin our pre-title sequence in Athens, where M assigns Bond to track down and stop a terrorist attack on the Acropolis by a man named Greco. Graphically, it's looking pretty good. At this point, GoldenEye Reloaded was still a year away, so this was the direct sister entry to GoldenEye on the Wii, and comparing the two, I think Bloodstone gets the slight edge due to the Xbox 360 and PS3 being stronger consoles than the Wii. I feel like Daniel Craig looks better here than he did in Quantum of Solace just 2 years earlier too. So as the gameplay begins, we see that it is strictly a third-person game. I can't tell if it's a good or bad thing to keep switching playstyles between all these Bond games, but maybe a variety is good to appeal to more gamers. But some people may hate first-person and love third, or vice versa, and then they may avoid the gameplay styles they dislike entirely, which can ruin the series' consistency. And it is a little strange that of the Activision games, Quantum of Solace was a hybrid of first and third, GoldenEye was first only, and this is third only. But essentially, this is more in line of an evolution from Everything or Nothing and From Russia with Love. And this first level throws a ton at you. There are 4 distinct parts to the level alone. The first is Bond tracking down Greco on a boat in a stealth mission. The second is a boat chase, which is exactly like the Live and Let Die game. It's practically a remake. The third part is more of a general run and gun area, pushing your way through a small wave of enemies. And the fourth part is a high-speed car chase to catch up to a car with the bomb before it reaches the Acropolis. It's an interesting perspective here, with the viewpoint being from the very front of the car. And you better believe you can absolutely annihilate innocent civilians here with no repercussions or mournful guilt, which is exactly like the Spy Who Loved Me game. But even that one docked you a solid 50 points per murder. The level then ends with M feeling pretty proud of her intuition about Bond as she orders him a vodka martini to congratulate a job well done as we move on to the title sequence. And I gotta say, not a fan of this one. Joss Stone performs the song entitled I'll Take It All, and I honestly find it pretty boring. I don't know much about Joss Stone as a performer, but it's just not an interesting song musically. And visually, oh man, I don't know if it's meant to be an homage to the Casino Royale title sequence, but it is a direct rip-off of a silhouetted Bond destroying bros in hand-to-hand combat as they explode into diamonds instead of card suits like in Casino Royale. It works very well in that sequence, and I personally love it, but it's the same thing here. My reaction to seeing it for the first time was, oh come on, followed by a sigh. So in my opinion, this is one of the worst game title sequences in some time. But on a positive note, the intro to the second level has some more briefing by M, and for some reason I feel like Dame Judi Dench and Daniel Craig sound better than ever here with their voice acting.
Second thoughts about selling out the UK?
That's why the helicopter is landing outside your hotel. There'll be a jet waiting at the airport. And when you arrive in Istanbul, do whatever you have to, by any means necessary, to find out who's behind this.
They're both already excellent actors, but it's almost like they cared more here, or were more comfortable with the art of voice acting. Bond is then assigned to Istanbul to rescue a man named Malcolm Tedworth at a construction site.
I don't care. Nobody goes down there without a hard hat.
Of course. Safety first.
Dick move. He is posing as a Dr. Bond, adding yet another parallel between Bond and Indiana Jones. Then it becomes another stealth mission with even more of an emphasis on stealth, and it's actually nicely done. A gadget addition here is a smartphone that when you switch to that mode, it briefly shows you where the enemy placements are, so Bond can choke an entire army one by one. Making your way through, you see Tedworth being tortured and to put a stop to it, resulting in an upcoming car chase tracking down his interrogator, thus ending the level. Quite honestly, I'm pretty impressed with what I've seen so far. The quality feels a little higher here over the GoldenEye remake even, and whether that's true or not, it was my initial reaction. It's an original story here, so they can take the liberties to do what they want here. Critically though, it's unfortunate that this game kinda gets solid D grades across the board. Of course, critics certainly aren't always what you should go by, but if multiple ones are pointing out the same problems, then it's at least something to consider. From what I can gather, the lukewarm reception seems to be mainly, it's just too average with nothing stand out about it. Maybe I'd feel the same way playing through the entire thing, but for this first part, I don't know, I kinda liked it. And from what I can gather, there aren't too many differences between the PC, PS3, and Xbox 360 versions, just that the PC has the superior graphics. However, there is one more version with an entirely different developer on the Nintendo side of things, and surprisingly, the Nintendo DS version seems to get the best ratings of them all. This one was also developed by N-Space, who apparently was working double time with releasing both their version of GoldenEye and Bloodstone on the same day. I'm very curious of this, so let's check it out a little. We begin with a similar sort of briefing from M with the voice acting, and get to see what the game looks like.
We haven't got 10 minutes. The satellite is picking up suspicious activity near Greco's boat. You've got to get a move on now.
I'm on my way.
Like with all of these handheld ones, the graphics are obviously a big step down in order to accommodate the DS's graphic capabilities. Mouths don't move, so it's similar to early N64 or PS1 games, and Daniel Craig's appearance kinda got a laugh out of me. Look at those piercing baby blues. So like with the console one, this game starts in Athens, except you get to hover down onto a yacht in a parachute and shoot. And we get to see how the game controls with a DS touchscreen. And it's kinda similar to another DS game I played for the first time recently. Metroid Prime Hunters. It's sort of awkward how you hold the DS to aim and shoot. You kinda need to hold the DS with your left hand, thumb on the D-pad, forefinger on the L button to shoot, and you use your right hand to use the stylus, which points Bond's gun around. Maybe I'm simply not used to it, but it can get a bit painful contorting your hand like this for long periods of time. Aside from that, and if you are used to this control style, combat is very easy. However, they did add one difference here that was a bit surprising to me. Bond regenerates health when out of combat. I could be wrong, but I don't recall any other game in the series with this feature. Correct me if I'm missing one in the comments below. I don't really know how any of this makes sense to retain the realism, but hey, James Bond is known for being invincible anyway. Other things to tap on the screen are your objectives, a gun reload button, and an action button for things like flipping over a table for cover. I think they want you to use the cover feature a lot, but I didn't really utilize it in the short period of time I played it. Why this is considered the best version of the game is beyond me though. It's certainly not bad. I adjusted to the controls right away, which is not always easy to say about certain shooting games, but I felt satisfied by playing the first few levels and stopping there for now just to see what it was like, whereas I felt more intrigued to continue the console version. And I mean, as I stated before, this is the final handheld Bond game to date, and therefore one of the best. As for me personally, I'd rather spend time on the console version first if I wanted the full Bloodstone experience. So that about does it for the bonded pair of the GoldenEye remake and Bloodstone. Bloodstone also had some multiplayer, but I mean, being 11 years later, this unfortunately isn't too relevant anymore. That's a major problem with these more modern games that rely on online multiplayer. The more time goes by, the less relevance it has. There's a pretty small window for it seems. Next time, we have reached the current end to this retrospective. My final part, part 24, until this new upcoming game gets officially revealed and released. Then this retrospective will continue, but that may not be for another year or even longer. For now, we are going 2 years into the future to the apocalyptic year of 2012, the year that the world was supposed to end, and coincidentally, the year that ended Bond video games as we know it. But it's a fitting end to the gaming series, as this next one is a little look back through the Bond film history, as we will be covering one film per Bond actor. This will be my debut as well as the swan song for Activision Bond games. James Bond will return in 007 Legends.